Now, how prepared were you when you passed your driving test? 1 in 4 new drivers in the south will crash in the year they pass their test. And almost 2/3 of people killed or seriously injured on our roads are under the age of 25. A senior Dorset police officer is amongst those who is calling for a rethink on the driving test. The government has come up with new plans to make the learning process tougher, but it's postponed making a decision for almost a year. Our transport correspondent Paul Clifton has been asking why. Paul.
Sally, let's have a look at the recommendations, shall we? There would be a minimum learning period. Within that, beginners would have to do a set number of hours, including driving at night and on motorways, spread over several months. After passing the test, there would be new restrictions for a year or two. They could include a ban on carrying young passengers, a nighttime curfew and zero tolerance on alcohol. But the government is wary about restricting young people's freedom of choice and independence. And with fewer traffic police around, who's going to enforce all this? Cameron Coull from Basingstoke is 17 and drives to Farnborough College each day in his kit car. If the new rules were already in place, his independence and freedom of movement would be restricted.
At that point I wouldn't be driving now, so that would be very, very problematic for getting home. Yes, I often, and my bandmates actually, because I often take them home after gigs.
Young drivers account for only 5% of miles driven, yet they are involved in 20% of all serious crashes. Cameron's jazz band is rehearsing, getting ready for a gig. Some of the changes to the driving test would affect the band. A nighttime curfew, a minimum period of learning, and a restriction on new drivers carrying passengers would each make it very difficult for all of them to stay in the band.
For me, that would be quite bad, so if I'm taking on the other members of my band, that would really sort of prevent us getting to and from gigs.
At Petersfield School in Hampshire, these pupils are having a driving lesson in the classroom.
So there's something coming up ahead here, look.
From the age of 14, they're preparing for the theory test with driving instructors.
Today we are just learning at the road signs and how to find them on the road.
I guess you have like a head start for everyone else.
Keep looking ahead, yeah?
Only a handful of schools do this, yet almost everyone working in road safety thinks teaching like this makes young drivers more aware of the rules and the risks.
The failure rate with the theory test is over 60% at the moment. Education starting now, here, early, when you're 14, is the key.
As the AA puts it, education is better than enforcement. Paul Clifton, BBC South Today. Car insurers are keen to restrict young drivers because it would reduce risk. The changes would mean few 17-year-olds are out on their own. There are many road safety experts who think there is a better way of educating teenagers instead of restricting them.
The driving test is a one-off test, around 45 minutes. What would be much better is to actually go through a system of education of getting our young people onto the road. Many other countries do this. For instance, skid pan first aid training, a visit to the opticians, lots of on-road training, driving on a motorway, night driving, all the things that we just don't do in this country.
Well, we asked the Department for Transport why it had delayed making a decision first promised in March last year. It told us it is vital the government strikes the right balance so that young drivers remain safe on our roads, but at the same time their freedom is not restricted. We will issue a paper when we've considered this further. Well, they've been considering it for years already.